It was a chilly fall evening. My parents had left early Friday morning and wouldn't be back until Sunday night. Everything had gone smoothly, and I was having a good time finally getting the house to myself, until Saturday. When my parents left, I brought my gaming console out into the living room, along with some pillows and a blanket, figuring my dog slept in the living room, I'd sleep out there with her in case she needed me in the middle of the night. It was getting to be around dinner time. After I fed my dog, I texted my mom, asking for a bit of money to order a pizza because I didn't feel like cooking that night. I ordered the pizza and sat on the couch playing a shooting game until the time had passed and I heard the doorbell ring. I got up and quickly threw on my jacket and went to look through the peephole. There stood the pizza guy, a medium-height, middle-aged looking guy. He had dirty blonde hair and eye bags seeming like he hadn't slept in a year. I could smell the dirty stench of cigarettes through my door. He had his eyes fixed on the camera doorbell with a worried look on his face. I unlocked the door and opened it the equivalent of my body width and greeted him with a smile. His eyes darted over to me. A small, creepy grin grew on his face. "Oh, I wasn't expecting a young girl like you," he said. "Gross," I thought. Confused about how to answer, I replied with a quiet giggle. I held out my hands to take my food. "So, how old are you?" the man asked, still grinning. "Sorry, man, I don't answer questions like that," I said, even more creeped out than before. He huffed, seeming to get frustrated. I placed the pizza boxes down on the couch next to me and reached into my pocket to hand him the tip I had planned to give him. "Are your parents home?" he asked. Lying, I replied, "Yeah, they're in the other room." I hoped he would believe me and just go, seeing as my parents took my mom's car on vacation, leaving my dad's car in the driveway. He scoffed and said, "You know, I like that game too. Do you like shooters?" referring to my paused game screen on the TV behind me. I became increasingly annoyed, but I didn't want to be rude and just slam the door in his face. "Yeah, sure. Look, I'm sorry, but I have to go now," I said, trying everything I could to get this man to leave me the hell alone. The man scowled. He took the tip and crumpled it in his hand and started muttering profanities under his breath, but I only could make out one phrase before I shut the door. "You're gonna regret this." I locked the door and anxiously watched carefully from the window to make sure he got back in his car. I didn't stop watching until he sped off around the corner. I let out a sigh of relief, did a quick sweep around the house, and made sure all the windows and doors were locked. A couple of hours passed until I decided I was going to lay down and watch TV for the night until I fell asleep. I made sure my dog was tended to and laid down. Before I noticed, I had drifted off, completely forgetting the interaction I had earlier in the day. When I woke up, it was still dark outside, 2 in the morning-ish. My dog was barking like crazy, and not an "I want to go outside" bark. An alarmed, "I see a stranger" kind of bark. If you have a dog, you understand this and you know what they're indicating to you. I propped myself up on my elbows and stretched for a second, looked around for a bit and didn't see anything. I was about to lie back down when I noticed it in the corner of my eye. A face. In the window to my right, I saw the same man from earlier, grinning again. He waved at me, still smiling but looking more sinister by the second. I felt my blood run cold. Why is he here? How long had he been watching me sleep? I shot up, and my fight or flight triggered instantly. I ran to my room and pulled the baseball bat out from underneath my bed and walked back to the living room where I had been sleeping, clutching it in hand. When I went back, the man had moved from the window to the front door, knocking gently. "Let's hang out and have some fun," I heard him say from outside. "I am gonna call the police if you don't get the hell away from my house," I yelled back. He banged on the door, violently aggressive this time. He screamed. The doorknob shook violently. My dog was going mad at this point, so I took her with me and locked myself in my room and dialed 911 on my phone. I was explaining what was happening when I heard a couple of loud bangs. He was throwing himself at my front door to try to bust through it. I texted my parents, and they had already packed and started driving back. But all of that left my mind when I heard the front door burst open and fall onto the ground of my living room. I whispered into my phone to the 911 operator that the man had broken into my house, and the person on the other end of the line instructed me to stay quiet and sit tight as the police were minutes away, Before I could think of anything, my phone died, and I started panicking. I quietly went over and shut my bedroom lights off and hid in my closet with my dog, petting her to make sure she wouldn't bark and reveal our hiding spot. I heard the man walking through my house, searching under tables, behind couches, and in hallway closets. He stopped walking for a moment. I could hear him directly outside my bedroom door. He shook the handle and huffed that same way before, indicating he was becoming frustrated. There were a couple of bangs on the door before he was able to punch a hole through my door, but enough to fit his hand through to unlock it. I heard the lock. It gave a small click sound before the door creaked open. It was pitch black in my room. The man took a step in and stood there. Seconds felt like hours. I cupped my hand over my mouth to quiet my anxious breathing. I heard him rummaging through my belongings. He looked under the bed, under my desk, then the last to hide. He had his hand on the closet door. I'm dead, I thought. I didn't know who he was or what he wanted, but I knew it wasn't going to be good. Before he had the chance to open the closet, my prayers were answered, and I heard the sirens of police getting closer and closer. Damn it, the man whispered. He exited my bedroom and ran through my home. I heard the back door slide open and the crunching footsteps through the dead grass. The 911 operator must have told the police where I was, and I felt like I could finally breathe again when an officer opened the closet door and told me it was okay to come out. They led me outside with my dog on a leash, and I sat on the edge of the set in the police car. I waited there as the police searched my house in case the man had still been there. The police said there were no signs anything was stolen. He wasn't there for valuables. He was looking for me. That fact will disturb me till the day I die. There were many signs that it had been a break-in, so the case stayed open for a while, but eventually closed. The guy was never found, and it wasn't known where he was. His identity was found, and this man had passed warrants for home invasions and failure to appear in court. The fact that he was never caught and is still out there somewhere shakes me to my core. But I know for sure I'm never opening the door for anybody ever again when I'm home alone. As a child, I always found comfort with people. It gave me this sort of feel in which I found comfort. Any scares I would have would go away with people. Whether it be in fear of monsters or vengeful spirits, the joyful sound of the garage door to my house always made me happy. Being an only child myself, I was always scared because I did not have what I always wanted beside me. My room is where I spent my days. I had a daily pattern: go home, do homework, walk up the stairs, go down the hallway to my room, and wait. I would find comfort in playing games online in which players may speak to other players. Voice communication was the best I found for me. While playing those games, I would wait for the sound of my garage door opening. My dog would bark, my mom would greet my dog, and I would then greet my mother when I walked downstairs and welcomed her. This day was not the same as it usually was. While playing Team Fortress 2 and playing my favorite class, the Spy, the same player would always find me and kill me. Even if I was invisible, I would be slain by this person. Strange, I thought, until I heard the voice. I am always watching. It was very creepy. It had a deep pitch to it, and it almost sounded like it was all the people could hear. People saying WTF and what the hell filled the side chat. I got freaked out, then closed the game and went onto YouTube and started to watch funny videos. Me then thinking the guy was just kidding the whole time to try to explain that to myself. Around 30 minutes later, after watching the videos, I heard the sound of my garage door opening. I can tell you I was relieved to hear the sound of its opening. I then heard the door open and my dog barking, as usual. But then, I heard a sound, a faint cracking sound, and the dog stopped barking. Weird. There wasn't any sound of my mom saying hello to my dog. Silence. What the hell is going on here? I thought as I began to get up from the desk, but at that very moment, my router went out. Now I was getting scared. I ran down the stairs. All that I saw were muddy footprints. No sign of my mom or my dog, except for these footprints. They were red, dark red. They seemed to drag off into the router room. Around this moment I was freaking out. As I walked over to investigate where the footprints led, The footprints led through each other. One pattern seemed to lead toward the garage door, so I walked toward it. I found that the door was open and so was the garage. I freaked out and ran. I ran straight towards the router room so I could call the police. Dead. It was staring right at me. My dog's corpse, its neck flung to the side. I started to cry and dialed 911. They sent a police squad right over. They investigated, and I called my mother, and she immediately left work to come to see what happened. She came back. The investigators started to look around, and as they went into the basement, we heard yelling and a gunshot. They scurried back. They called back to the station to ask for assistance to dispose of a dead body. They then told us what they saw. They found a hole, a large hole in which a human could fit behind our old wardrobe. A 50-some-year-old man lived in our basement, and, judging by the number of feces and urine in the corner of this hole, he has lived in there for a while. He would steal a small number of items we would not notice. Cans of food, small water bottles, toilet paper, and minimal things in need for survival. He also had a computer on which he probably played with me. But the scariest thing was, they found my items. Used shirts, food wrappers, strands of hair from one of my brushes, toothbrushes, fingernail clippings, photos, and even flash drives of videos me and my friends would make when bored. He was obsessed with me. When they investigated more, they found out that he would use my computer. He knew my Steam name. He would look through my history and go through my files while I was at school. They found out his name, Joseph Meyer, a son of a German immigrant who went missing around the age of 14. While looking through DNA files, they found many cases of murders linked to him, all around my age. They had been murdered around 1.5 years to 2 years with him living in their house. All of them were killed and then sexually abused. He was plotting to attract me by opening my garage door, then he would murder me. Fortunately, he must have thought I had a friend over and ran back to the hole. My mom got a job in which she would stay at home to help comfort me. To this day, I always check my house everywhere in case another man may be living in my house. Since I was 17, I have had extreme scopophobia and am barely able to sleep to this day. This story takes place when I was 22 years old. I had just gotten home from a long night of stocking shelves at my local grocery store. I worked the closing shift, so I usually got home around midnight. I shared a cheap apartment with my roommate, Mark. We weren't in the best of neighborhoods, but I just felt lucky to have a place to live that wasn't my parents' basement. I threw my jacket on the coat rack next to the front door and walked into the kitchen to rummage through the fridge for something to eat. I had just pulled a frozen burrito out of the freezer when I noticed something weird. My bedroom door had been slightly open when I walked by the hallway. I know this doesn't sound strange at first, but I specifically remembered closing it that morning when I left for work. I like my privacy, so I always remember to shut my door. I stepped back into the living room and looked down the hall. "Hello?" I called. There was just dead silence. Not wanting to let the fear get the better of me, I walked across the living room and flicked on the hallway light switch. "Mark, is that you?" I asked. Mark had always been a bit of an odd guy, so I couldn't help but think that maybe he was trying to play some sort of weird prank on me, maybe waiting to jump out of my closet or something when I entered my room. When I finally got to the bedroom door, I gently pushed it open. The light from the hallway illuminated a large portion of the room. I looked around, definitely feeling the creepy vibes. There was no one there, and nothing looked out of the ordinary. Just the usual, my twin bed, with my nightstand just to the left. I closed the door shut and walked back into the kitchen. I popped my dinner in the microwave and pressed the start button. While that was cooking, I turned on the television, ready to put on a scary movie to watch and relax. Suddenly, I heard a muffled thump coming from down the hall. At first, I thought it was the neighbors or something. They can be pretty loud sometimes, and it's not unusual to hear a loud bump in the night. But then it happened again, and this time I could tell for sure it was coming from down the hall. "Mark?" I called once more. The microwave beeped just then, and I nearly had a heart attack. "Yeah, sorry, dropped something," I could hear him say through the door. I'll admit I felt a little better knowing that Mark was home. I walked back into the kitchen to get my food, and that's when my phone vibrated in my pocket. It was a text message from Mark. Hey dude, running a little late here at work. Could you please leave the door unlocked for me? My stomach dropped to the floor and a chill ran down my spine. I texted back, "Wait, you're still at work?" He responded only a few seconds later. "Yeah, why?" At that moment there was another noise from the hall and I looked up. The silhouette of a large man was standing there, holding what appeared to be a butcher's knife. I turned and ran towards the front door, hearing the heavy clunk of the man's boots behind me. He wasn't running. Instead, it sounded like he was slowly walking, taking his time. I didn't stop to look back. I ran down the emergency staircase and out into the parking lot where I called the cops. The cops showed up just a few minutes later. They went upstairs and searched my apartment, but they said they didn't find anyone. What they did find still terrifies me to this day. As they were searching the apartment, the cops found a note left on the kitchen table, held under a salt shaker. On that note, only one word was written: soon.